Just wondering, inflation front and center. We saw how US CPI rose 0.5%, still elevated at 6.4%. How are you looking at inflation? Do you expect CPI to continue to rise?
Well, good morning, Haslinda, and great to be on with you, and great to be here in Singapore with our franchise partners, celebrating all the success we've had the last few years and planning for more growth in the future. You're right, we did have a great fourth quarter. We just put up some amazing numbers, but our growth is really just getting started, as we like to say. You know, we've got 55,000 restaurants and another 100,000 yet to be built. As far as the environment that we're operating in, as we mentioned on our earnings call, you know, we're pleased with how the consumer is behaving generally around the world, and we're seeing good, strong demand in most of the markets that we operate in. Obviously, markets like China are just coming out of lockdown, and so we're very optimistic about the future growth in that market this year.
But David, inflation remains elevated. Do you see the need perhaps to raise the prices of the food on your menu across your brands? Do you see the need to perhaps raise wages for your workers?
Well, certainly over the last few years, we have seen an increase in the product costs, and we've seen an increase in the wages that we're paying our workers, and that's great because we've adjusted our model and passed some of those costs along to consumers, and then found other ways that we can save on input costs so we can continue to be an amazing value for our consumers. And that's really the environment that we operate in. When you're the largest player in the world, as we are, most restaurants of any other company, we have some scale advantages that allow us to navigate some of these trickier challenges better than most. But as we mentioned on our earnings call, you know, we think that we're past the peak of inflation in most of the markets that we operate in, and we're seeing a little bit more of a return to normal in the consumer environment.
Let's talk about the Chinese market. You played a crucial role in the spin-off back in the 2015 or 2016, thereabouts. I'm wondering, David, Yum Brands has said before that it doesn't expect Chinese consumer demand to recover anytime soon. Why is that? What is the base case scenario for you?
The base case scenario for us in China, I'll always defer to our China team there. As you know, we've spun off our China business as a separate public company, and they're a licensee of Yum. On their earnings call, they were optimistic about the future growth in China this year. But for us, you know, the benefits of our business model is we're in 157 countries. We have 4 brands, 3 massive brands around the world. So that diversification really allows us to get through any challenge anywhere in the world, and we saw that in full display over the last few years as we navigated the challenges of COVID.
You talked about diversification. We know that you started selling coffee at KFC in China. Give us a sense of how that is doing. Is it taking market share from the likes of Starbucks, which is offering pretty much higher price point products?
Yeah, as far as the specifics on coffee in China, obviously that's been a big part of the KFC brand in China for quite some time, and the China team does an amazing job with their coffee program. I couldn't speak to market share, but I will say, you know, that's the beauty of our brands is the flexibility of our formats in different markets. You know, we lean in on different products that make sense in the local communities. So, you know, we do have a flexible model and dominate in certain parts of the category depending on the markets that we operate in. And our franchisees take full advantage of that. You know, we've got over 1,300 franchisees represented here in Singapore that have finally got a chance to get together with us after we've had this meeting delayed for quite some time during COVID. And it's fantastic to be able to get together, give them a hug, and celebrate the way they've used all these different programs in their markets to navigate this environment.
How are you assessing expansion opportunities in this part of the world, in Asia, as Europe is expecting a slowdown, the same thing with the US? Might Asia provide those opportunities for expansion and growth for you?
Absolutely. Asia is a big part of the growth story at Yum. It always has been, and it always will be, given the population here. In fact, last year alone, we opened 4,500 gross new units around the world, 3,100 net new units, and of those net new units, more than half of them came from Asia. In fact, more than half of them came from just India and China. So this is a big part of our growth equation. With the returns that our franchise partners are getting from building in these markets are quite impressive. Yum China, for example, reported 2 to 3 year cash paybacks on their investments. And even during the challenging times that they've had during the last few years, they continued to build. So our footprint in China, for example, has gone from 9,000 units prior to the pandemic to over 12,000 today, just as one data point. So lots of growth, as you said, all around Asia. And of course, one of the reasons why we've chosen to meet here with our franchise partners.